Jake Miller hiked deeper into the Montana wilderness, his boots crunching over pine needles and fallen branches. The afternoon sun filtered through the trees, casting dappled shadows across the forest floor. After 15 years as a military medic, and now 3 years as a wilderness guide, these mountains had become his sanctuary. The first sign that something was wrong came when birds suddenly went silent. Then Jake noticed the trees. Several pines had their tops sheared off in a clean line. His curiosity pulled him forward until he reached a small clearing that hadn't been there last week. "What the hell?" he muttered. A deep trench carved the earth, ending at what looked like a metallic egg half buried in dirt. Steam rose from its surface. The object was about 20 feet long with a smooth silver exterior that reflected the forest around it. No markings, no windows, nothing that looked like a door. Jake approached cautiously, military training kicking in. "Hello? Anyone there?" A faint groan answered him. Part of the egg's shell had cracked, creating an opening just large enough for a person to squeeze through. Jake hesitated only a moment before pulling his first aid kit from his backpack and climbing inside. The interior glowed with soft blue light. Strange symbols flickered across curved panels. But what caught Jake's attention was the figure slumped against the far wall. At first glance, it appeared human, but only at first glance. The being had humanoid features, but with skin that seemed to shimmer with a faint glow. Their face was delicate with large, almond-shaped eyes closed in pain. Jake couldn't tell if it was male or female, though something about their features suggested feminine. Blood, or what he assumed was blood, a silvery blue liquid, seeped from a wound on their side. Despite his shock, Jake's medical training took over. He approached slowly and knelt beside the injured being. "I'm going to help you," he said clearly, though he doubted they understood. The being's eyes fluttered open, revealing irises of deep violet. They looked at Jake without fear, then reached weakly toward a small device on their wrist. After pressing several symbols, a small projection appeared in the air between them. "Translation matrix activating," came a mechanical voice. The being spoke in musical tones that the device converted. "Are you going to harm me?" Jake shook his head. "No, I'm a medic. I want to help." The being studied him, then nodded slowly. "I am Lyra, third daughter of the High Council of Asteria." Jake pressed a clean bandage to the wound. "I'm Jake. What happened to you?" "My ship, damaged during escape, had to make emergency landing." Lyra winced as Jake applied pressure. "They will find me. They will come." "Who will come?" Jake asked, helping her sit up. "Those who killed my family. The traitors." Her violet eyes filled with something like tears. "If they find me, your world will be in danger too." Jake looked around the crashed ship. Government agencies would swarm this place as soon as it was reported. They would take Lyra, study her, possibly harm her. And if others were coming to hunt her. "Can you walk?" he asked. Lyra nodded weakly. "I have a cabin about 3 miles from here. We can hide there while you recover." Jake helped her to her feet. "Then we'll figure out what to do." As they emerged from the ship, Lyra looked up at the sky, her luminescent skin catching the sunlight. "Thank you," she said simply. Jake had no idea what he was getting into, but he couldn't leave her here. "Let's move quickly," he said, supporting her weight. "Night will come soon, and we have a long way to go." Neither of them noticed the small tracking beacon that began blinking on the ship's exterior, sending signals into deep space. 3 days passed in Jake's remote cabin. The wooden structure stood hidden among towering pines, miles from the nearest neighbor, perfect for keeping secrets. Inside, Lyra rested on Jake's bed while he slept on the couch, checking her wound regularly. On the 4th morning, Jake woke to find Lyra standing by the window, her skin catching the early sunlight. The silvery blue wound on her side had already formed a thin scar. "You heal fast," Jake said, pouring coffee into a mug. Lyra turned, her violet eyes studying him. "My people recover quickly from physical damage. It is a natural adaptation. She approached the table where Jake sat. I must thank you properly for saving my life. Jake shrugged. Anyone would have helped. No, Lyra said firmly. They would not. On many worlds, including parts of your own, I would have been captured or killed immediately. She sat across from him, her movements graceful despite her recent injuries. Jake pushed a mug of coffee toward her, which she sniffed curiously before taking a small sip. Bitter, she observed, but not unpleasant. Jake smiled. So tell me about Asteria. What's it like? Lyra's expression softened. It orbits a binary star system 300 light-years from Earth. Our cities float above the surface on anti-gravity platforms. The sky is always purple at sunset. As she spoke, she reached across the table and touched Jake's hand. Instantly, his mind filled with images, floating crystal towers, beings with luminescent skin moving through markets filled with strange fruits and technologies, all under twin suns. Jake pulled his hand away in shock. What was that? Forgive me, Lyra said. My people share memories through touch. I wanted you to see my home. Jake stared at her. You're telepathic. Only through direct contact, and only with those who are receptive. She tilted her head. Your mind is unusually open for a human. Jake processed this new information. Why were you running? You mentioned traitors. Lyra's face darkened. Asteria is part of the Galactic Federation, 27 worlds united in peace. My mother led the council that governs our sector. 2 months ago, General Drav staged a coup. He believed we should use our technology to conquer rather than cooperate. And your family? All dead, she said quietly. I escaped with the help of loyal guards. My ship carried something Drav wants desperately, biotechnology that can transform worlds or destroy them. If he obtains it, the balance of power across the Federation would shift forever. Jake ran a hand through his hair. And now you're stuck on Earth. Not for long, Lyra replied. My distress signal will eventually reach loyal forces, but it might also reach Drav's hunters first. Their conversation was interrupted by the distant sound of helicopters. Jake moved quickly to the window and grabbed his binoculars. Black helicopters circled the area of the crash site. Government, Jake muttered. They found your ship. Lyra stood beside him, her face tense. How long before they find this cabin? Days, maybe hours. Jake began gathering supplies. We need to move. I have a friend about 50 miles north who might help us. As Jake packed food and first aid supplies, Lyra retrieved a small crystal from her torn clothing. It pulsed with inner light. What's that? Jake asked. The technology Drav wants. It contains the genetic codes for terraforming barren worlds. She slipped it into a pocket. In the wrong hands, it could alter life itself. Jake handed her a backpack and one of his jackets. We'll leave through the back trail. If we hurry, we can reach the river by nightfall. As they stepped outside, Lyra looked up at the sky. I never expected to find an ally on this distant world. Jake checked his compass, and I never expected to be hiding an alien princess in my cabin. Life is full of surprises. Neither noticed the small drone that hovered silently above the tree line, its camera focused on the cabin door. The forest darkened as Jake and Lyra made their way north. They had traveled for 2 days, staying off main trails and crossing streams to hide their scent and tracks. Jake's military training proved valuable as he led them through the wilderness, teaching Lyra how to move silently through the underbrush. On the 3rd night, as they huddled around a small, smokeless fire, Jake noticed Lyra staring at the stars. Do you recognize any constellations? He asked, offering her a tin cup of heated beans. A few, she replied, taking the cup. From this angle, I can see the star cluster that contains my home world, though it appears as merely a faint dot to your eyes. Jake was about to respond when a high-pitched whine cut through the night air. He immediately kicked dirt over the fire, plunging them into darkness. Down, he whispered urgently, pulling Lyra to the ground. A blinding light swept over the treetops as something massive moved above them. The air crackled with energy, leaving the smell of ozone in its wake. "Drav's hunters," Lyra whispered, her skin dimming its natural glow. "They found me." The craft, sleek and predatory, hovered above the forest canopy before moving eastward. Jake released the breath he'd been holding. "We can't stay here," he said, grabbing their packs. "That ship is too advanced for Earth technology." "How did they find you?" Lyra's expression grew grim. "The crash likely left radiation traces that their sensors can detect. And," she hesitated, "my biology emits a unique energy signature that those from my world can track." They moved through the night, climbing higher into the mountains. As dawn broke, Jake spotted a ridge that offered a view of the valley below. What he saw made his blood run cold. Smoke rose from the direction of his cabin. Even from miles away, he could see the blackened clearing where it once stood. "They destroy your home," Lyra said softly, standing beside him. "Because of me." Jake's jaw tightened. "They would have killed you." "Yes," she agreed. "And now, they will kill anyone who helps me." A distant explosion echoed across the valley. 3 sleek craft, unlike any Earth aircraft, converged on the site of Jake's cabin. "They're searching in a grid pattern," Jake observed. "Standard search and destroy tactics, just with better tech." He studied the mountains ahead. "We need to reach the old mining tunnels by nightfall. They'll mask any signals you're giving off." They moved faster now, urgency driving them forward. As they climbed, Jake noticed Lyra, occasionally touching the crystal she carried. "What exactly can that thing do?" he asked during a brief rest. Lyra held up the crystal, which pulsed with inner light. "This contains genetic algorithms developed over 10,000 years. It can reshape barren planets, accelerate evolution, or reverse it. In Drav's hands, it could turn living worlds into weapons." Jake stared at the small object. "And it's worth killing a princess for." "It's worth destroying worlds for," she replied quietly. As twilight approached, they reached the abandoned mine entrance. Jake lit a small flashlight and led the way inside. The tunnel stretched for miles under the mountains, a labyrinth of passages from the gold rush days. They had ventured about a quarter mile in when a tremor shook the mountain. Dust and small rocks showered down from the ceiling. "That wasn't natural," Jake said, looking back toward the entrance. A red glow appeared in the tunnel behind them, followed by heavy footsteps. A voice called out in a language Jake didn't understand, but the menacing tone was universal. "Run." Lyra grabbed his hand, pulling him deeper into the tunnel. "They're using phase disruptors. They'll bring down the whole mountain to find me." Another blast rocked the tunnel. A section collapsed behind them, cutting off their pursuers but also their exit. "Good news and bad news," Jake said, breathing hard as they paused at a junction. "They can't follow us this way." Lyra nodded grimly. "But neither can we go back." Jake pointed his flashlight down the right tunnel. "Then we go forward. My friend's place is on the other side of this mountain, if we can find a way through." Behind them, the sound of drilling began to echo through the stone. After 12 hours in the mining tunnels, Jake and Lyra emerged from a half-collapsed exit on the northern side of the mountain. Dawn broke over the valley, revealing a landscape of pine forests and distant snow-capped peaks. Jake checked his compass and pointed toward a cluster of buildings barely visible through the trees. "That's where we're headed," he said. "My buddy Marcus runs a private aviation research facility there. Ex-military like me, but he went into experimental aircraft design." Lyra scanned the sky nervously. "Will he help us, even knowing the danger?" "Marcus believes in aliens more than he believes in the government," Jake said with a slight smile. "Plus, he owes me for pulling him out of a firefight in Kandahar." They approached the facility cautiously, keeping to the tree line. The compound consisted of several low buildings and a large hangar surrounded by a chain-link fence. Jake used his binoculars to check for unusual activity before approaching the security gate. A camera swiveled toward them. The intercom crackled. "State your business." "Tell Marcus that the guy who saved his ass in Kandahar needs a favor," Jake replied. After a tense minute, the gate slid open. A tall man with dark skin and a closely trimmed beard jogged out to meet them. His eyes widened when he saw Lyra, particularly when a shaft of sunlight made her skin shimmer. "Inside. Now." Marcus ushered them quickly toward the main building. Once inside his office, Marcus locked the door and closed the blinds. "I always knew you'd bring trouble to my doorstep one day, Jake. But an actual alien." He shook his head in disbelief. "The government's been going crazy. Reports of unidentified aircraft, a meteorite that changed course mid-flight. They've locked down the whole region." Jake quickly explained their situation while Lyra studied the aircraft designs on Marcus's walls. "So you've got space mercenaries trying to kill you both," Marcus summarized. "And the government would dissect your new friend if they found her." "That's about it," Jake confirmed. Marcus ran a hand over his face. "You know who you need to talk to. Dr. Elena Rivera. She's been monitoring unusual signal patterns for months now." "A scientist?" Jake asked skeptically. "Can we trust her?" "She's been fired from 3 research positions for insisting the signals she detected were non-terrestrial communications," Marcus replied. "The academic community thinks she's crazy. She's been working here as my systems analyst for the past year." Within an hour, Elena arrived, a short woman with intense eyes and prematurely gray hair. She didn't seem surprised by Lyra's appearance. "Fascinating," she said, examining Lyra without touching her. "Your cellular structure must allow for light transmission through the epidermis. Is it bioluminescence or something else entirely?" Lyra smiled. "It is a form of energy conversion unique to my people." Elena's focus shifted quickly. "The signals I've been tracking, they're from your people, aren't they? Both the regular pulses from the Carina sector and the more recent burst patterns?" Lyra nodded. "The regular pulses are navigation beacons. The bursts are likely from those hunting me." Elena turned to Marcus. "We need to use your satellite uplink. If Lyra can send a properly encrypted signal, we might contact her allies before the hunters find us." Marcus led them to the communications center, a room filled with screens and equipment that looked more advanced than standard civilian technology. "Some of this came from projects the government decided never existed," he explained, noticing Jake's expression. "Let's just say I salvaged what would have been destroyed." Lyra examined the equipment, then removed her crystal. "This contains communication protocols that can reach Asterian frequencies. May I?" Elena nodded eagerly, helping Lyra connect the crystal to their system. As they worked, Marcus pulled Jake aside. "The facility's been monitored since those craft were spotted. We probably have less than 24 hours before someone comes knocking. Government or aliens." Jake watched as Lyra's crystal pulsed with light, interfacing with Earth technology in ways that should have been impossible. "What's the range on that signal?" he asked. Lyra looked up, her violet eyes reflecting the screens around her. "If it works correctly, 300 light years. And how long until your people receive it?" Her expression grew solemn. "If any of them survived, days perhaps. If we're fortunate. Then we'd better prepare for the unlikely event that we're not fortunate," Marcus said, unlocking a cabinet filled with military-grade weapons. The sun set on their second day at Marcus's facility. The small team had fortified their position as best they could, turning the research compound into a makeshift fortress. Jake stood at the window, watching the perimeter while cleaning his rifle, an old habit from his military days. "Your government forces are moving closer," Lyra said, joining him at the window. Her luminescent skin had dimmed to blend better with the shadows. 3 vehicles stopped at the road junction 5 miles south. Elena looked up from her computer terminal. "She's right. I'm picking up encrypted communications. They're establishing a perimeter." Marcus entered the room, carrying additional ammunition. "That's not our only problem. The satellite detected 3 objects entering Earth's atmosphere about an hour ago. Too small for ships, probably scout drones. Or drop pods, Lyra said quietly. Elite hunters use them for stealth deployments. Jake checked his watch. How much longer until your signal reaches friendly forces? It should have arrived by now, Lyra replied. But I cannot know if anyone survived to receive it. The facility's alarm suddenly blared. Belina's fingers flew across her keyboard. Perimeter breach. Multiple contacts approaching from the North Ridge. On the security monitors, strange figures moved through the trees. They wore fitted armor that seemed to shift colors to match their surroundings, making them difficult to track. Each carried a weapon that glowed with blue energy. Asterian hunters, Lyra confirmed. 12 of them, at least. At the same moment, headlights appeared on the southern access road. Government vehicles approaching fast. Perfect timing, Jake muttered. Caught between alien mercenaries and our own government. Marcus grabbed extra weapons from the cabinet. There's a maintenance tunnel under the main hangar. If we time it right, we can slip past both groups while they're dealing with each other. Before they could move, a brilliant flash of light erupted outside, followed by an explosion that shook the building. The power failed, emergency lights casting the room in red shadows. They've targeted the power system, Elena reported, switching to a backup terminal. The tunnel access is electronic. We're trapped. Jake made a quick decision. Marcus, Elena, try to reach the government forces. They'll at least keep you alive for questioning. Lyra and I will create a diversion. Jake, no, Marcus protested. Those hunters will kill you both. They want me alive. Lyra said. The crystal is what matters to them. Jake is right. You should not die for my war. Before anyone could argue further, the facility's west wall exploded inward. Debris scattered across the room as 3 armored figures stepped through the breach, weapons raised. Stand away from the Asterian Royal, one commanded in accented English. Jake raised his rifle, but one of the hunters fired first. A pulse of energy struck near him, the force throwing him against the wall. Pain exploded in his chest as something sharp pierced his side. Through blurring vision, Jake saw Lyra standing in the center of the room, violet eyes blazing with anger. The crystal in her hand pulsed with growing intensity. You will not harm them, she declared, her voice taking on a resonance that made the air vibrate. The lead hunter laughed. Your father made similar threats before he died, Princess. Jake tried to stand but couldn't. Blood soaked his shirt. A metal shard had penetrated deep into his torso. As his consciousness began to fade, he saw Lyra turn toward him, her face transforming from anger to horror. Jake, she rushed to his side, pressing her hand against his wound. The crystal in her other hand glowed brighter, pulsing in rhythm with Jake's fading heartbeat. Lyra pressed it against his chest, directly over his heart. What are you doing? The hunter demanded. Stop. Life for life, Lyra whispered to Jake. An ancient bond. Forgive me, but there is no other way. The crystal shattered against Jake's chest, dissolving into liquid light that spread across his wound. Unimaginable heat and cold washed through his body simultaneously. Every cell seemed to burn and freeze at once. Through the pain, Jake felt something new. Lyra's presence in his mind, her thoughts merging with his own. Images flashed before him. Her childhood on Asteria, her family's deaths, the secrets of the crystal she had just sacrificed to save him. Above them, the facility's roof suddenly tore away. A massive ship hovered overhead, bathing the entire compound in brilliant white light. The hunters froze, weapons lowering in apparent recognition. Jake's last thought before darkness took him was feeling Lyra's relief flooding through their new connection. Help had arrived, but from which side? He couldn't tell. Jake woke to the sound of voices arguing in a language he didn't understand. His eyes opened to a curved ceiling that glowed with soft blue light. The pain in his chest was gone, replaced by an unusual warmth. He tried to sit up and found he could move easily. You should rest, came Lyra's voice from beside him. She sat on a floating chair next to what appeared to be a medical bed. The healing is complete, but your body is still adjusting. Jake looked down at his chest. Where the metal shard had pierced him, a silvery mark now shimmered on his skin, similar to Lyra's natural luminescence. "What happened?" he asked, his voice rough. "Where are we?" "Aboard the Asterian flagship Luminara," she replied. "My mother's sister, Commander Thela, received our distress signal. They arrived just in time." Jake's mind felt unusually clear. He could sense emotions that weren't his own: relief, concern, and something deeper he couldn't name, all coming from Lyra. "The crystal," he said, touching the mark on his chest. "You used it to save me." Lyra nodded. "It was designed to reshape life. I redirected its purpose to heal you, but the process created something unexpected." She hesitated. "We are linked now, Jake. A life bond rarely formed even among my people." Before Jake could respond, the door slid open. A tall Asterian female entered, wearing ornate armor with symbols Jake somehow recognized as indicating high rank. "The human is awake," Commander Thela stated. Her eyes, deeper violet than Lyra's, studied Jake with interest. "The council representatives wish to speak with both of you." Jake swung his legs off the bed. "What council? Where are Marcus and Alina?" "Your friends are safe," Thela assured him. "They are currently meeting with representatives from your government. The situation has escalated." The three walked through corridors that seemed to be made of living crystal. Crew members stopped and bowed to Lyra as they passed. Jake felt their curiosity through his strange new awareness. They entered a large chamber where a dozen Asterians stood on one side, and surprisingly, 5 humans in military and diplomatic uniforms stood on the other. Jake recognized the insignia of American military intelligence and the State Department. "What's going on?" he whispered to Lyra. "First contact," she replied simply. "Your world leaders demanded explanation after our ships became visible in orbit. Commander Thela decided openness was the best approach." A distinguished-looking man in a dark suit approached them. "Mr. Miller, I'm Secretary Hamilton from the State Department. You've caused quite a situation." "I was just trying to help someone in need," Jake replied. "By harboring an alien royal and engaging in firefights across 3 states. Hamilton shook his head. "Fortunately for you, our new friends have vouched for your actions." The diplomatic tension in the room was palpable as human and Asterian representatives resumed their discussion. Jake caught fragments about technology exchange, security concerns, and diplomatic recognition. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the ship. A young Asterian officer rushed into the chamber. "Commander, 3 warships have dropped out of jump space. They bear General Drav's insignia." The view screen at the front of the chamber activated, showing 3 predatory-looking vessels approaching Earth. "They tracked us here," Thela said grimly. "They will not allow peaceful contact between our worlds." The lead ship fired, the blast striking the Luminara. The entire chamber shuddered. "Our shields are holding," the officer reported, "but we are outgunned." Jake felt a sudden clarity through his bond with Lyra. Knowledge flowed between them: ship systems, weapons capabilities, tactical options. "The defense grid," he said suddenly. Every head in the room turned toward him. "What did you say?" Thela asked sharply. "Your ship's defense grid. It can be reconfigured to create a feedback loop in their targeting systems," Jake explained, surprised by his own understanding. Lyra stepped forward. "He's right. The life bond has shared knowledge between us." Thela stared at them both, then at the mark on Jake's chest. "A true royal life bond," she whispered, "not seen in generations." Another blast rocked the ship more violently. Screens showed Earth military forces scrambling in response to the attack. "Commander," the State Department secretary said urgently, "if these are hostile forces, Earth stands ready to assist in defense." Thela nodded grimly. "Take your stations. All of you," her eyes fixed on Jake. including you, human. By our most ancient laws, one who bears the royal bond may command in time of crisis. Jake looked at Lyra, who nodded encouragingly. I'm not a commander, he protested. No, Lyra said, taking his hand. You're something our people haven't had in centuries, a perspective from beyond our world. And right now, that might save us all. As they moved toward the command center, Jake realized his life had changed forever. Earth's future now intertwined with a conflict from the stars, and he stood at the center of it all. 6 months after the battle above Earth, Jake stood at the window of the newly constructed Asterian embassy. The gleaming structure rose from the Montana wilderness, not far from where he had first found Lyra's crashed ship. Its crystalline towers caught the sunset, casting rainbow patterns across the valley floor. Admiring your handiwork again, Marcus asked, joining him at the window. His friend now wore the uniform of Earth's first interstellar defense force, complete with insignia that combined human and Asterian symbols. Jake smiled. Still can't believe any of this is real. The battle had lasted only 3 hours. With Jake's understanding of human tactics and Lyra's knowledge of Asterian technology, they had turned the tide against General Draft's forces. Earth's military had provided unexpected support, launching experimental weapons that confused the enemy sensors long enough for the Luminara to target the enemy flagship. Draft himself had been captured alive, a coup that ended the rebellion across 3 star systems. Ambassador Miller. An aide approached, bowing slightly. The council is ready for you. Jake nodded, straightening the formal robes he still felt awkward wearing. The silvery mark on his chest, visible at the collar of his garments, glowed faintly, pulsing in time with Lyra's heartbeat half a galaxy away. The council chamber contained representatives from 27 worlds, with Earth being the newest addition. Elena sat among the human delegation, her expertise in communications making her invaluable to the first contact team. The floor recognizes Ambassador Miller, announced the council leader, an elder Asterian named Varix. Jake stepped forward. Though he had done this several times now, speaking for both Earth and Asteria still felt strange. The life bond with Lyra had given him knowledge of their language and customs, but nothing could fully prepare him for becoming a bridge between worlds. Honored Council, he began, the terraforming of Mars proceeds on schedule. Asterian technology combined with human innovation has accelerated the process beyond our initial projections. The first habitable zones will be ready within 5 years. The council members nodded approvingly. The restoration of Mars had been the first major joint project between Earth and the Galactic Federation, a gesture of goodwill and a practical solution to Earth's growing population concerns. As the meeting concluded, Jake felt a familiar presence touch his mind. Lyra was returning. Her diplomatic mission to the outer colonies had kept them apart for weeks, though their mental bond allowed them to share thoughts and feelings across vast distances. Jake excused himself and headed to the landing platform, where her ship would soon arrive. The life bond had changed them both in ways neither had expected. His thoughts now contained memories of worlds he had never visited, while she sometimes used Earth expressions that made her advisors stare in confusion. The sleek diplomatic vessel descended from the clouds, touching down gently on the platform. When the door opened and Lyra emerged, Jake felt their bond flare with shared joy. Her luminescent skin brightened as she approached. The colonies have agreed to the new treaty, she said, taking his hands in hers. Peace is spreading. Jake smiled. Earth's leaders just approved the education exchange program. The first human students will visit Asteria next month. They walked together through the embassy gardens, where plants from both worlds grew side by side. Human and Asterian staff worked together, the initial strangeness of their differences now fading into comfortable routine. Did you ever imagine this? Lyra asked, gesturing to the thriving complex around them. When you found me in that crashed ship. Jake shook his head. I was just trying to help someone who was hurt. Everything else. He glanced up at the stars beginning to appear in the evening sky. This is beyond anything I could have dreamed. Lyra's hand tightened around his. Through their bond, he felt her gratitude and something deeper that transcended human or Asterian emotion. "The Council has officially named you Earth's permanent representative," she said, "and my people now accept you as part of the royal lineage. Our worlds are truly joining." Jake looked out over the Montana landscape where his simple life as a wilderness guide seemed like another lifetime ago. In saving Lyra, he had changed the course of 2 civilizations. "What happens next?" he asked. Lyra smiled, her violet eyes reflecting starlight. "We build something new, not just Asterian, not just human, but something greater than either alone." As night fell completely, they stood together watching Earth's first interstellar ship prepare for its maiden voyage, carrying the hopes of a world that had suddenly found itself part of a much larger family among the stars.